In the year 3124, humanity had risen from a fractured species on a dying planet to become one of the most enigmatic forces in the galaxy. The Galactic Empire, an ancient coalition of star-spanning civilizations governed by ironclad bureaucracy and ruthless military might, had long viewed Earth with suspicion. But it wasn't humanity's fleets or weapons that struck terror into their hearts. It was something far more insidious: its diplomats. Commander Vale Tar stood at the edge of the observation deck aboard his flagship, Obsidian Vale, his six-limbed frame rippled under the dim light as he gazed out at the swirling nebula where the human delegation awaited them. He clenched his mandibles tightly together, a gesture of barely contained frustration. "Why do they insist on meeting here?" he muttered to himself, though his aide, Zilkor, heard him clearly through the translator implant embedded in her skull. "They always choose strange locations," Zilkor replied, her voice calm but laced with unease. "It's part of their charm." Vale Tar snorted derisively. Charm. That was one way to describe it. Another would be manipulation. Over the centuries, humanity's diplomats had earned a reputation for being unnervingly effective, not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they understood something no one else did: weakness. Humanity didn't conquer worlds, it persuaded them. It didn't demand obedience, it offered alliances. And when those alliances inevitably turned sour, as all things eventually did, the humans left behind seeds of chaos that could blossom into full-blown rebellions within decades. Entire sectors of the empire had fallen apart after encounters with human negotiators. Some called it diplomacy, others called it sabotage. Either way, it worked. "Prepare the shuttle," Vale Tar ordered. "Let's see what they want this time." On board the human vessel, Aurora's Dawn, Ambassador Alara Chen adjusted her ceremonial robes in front of a mirror. She smiled faintly at her reflection, noting how the silver embroidery shimmered like starlight against the black fabric. Her dark eyes sparkled with quiet confidence. This wasn't her first rodeo. Behind her, Captain Marcus Hale leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed over his chest. "You think they'll actually listen this time?" he asked, skepticism dripping from every word. Ilara turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "They don't have much choice. Their economy is collapsing, their colonies are restless, and their emperor is losing control. We're offering them an olive branch, or rather a lifeline. Whether they take..." "It is up to them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And if they don't?" She shrugged. "Then we let nature take its course. Empires fall, Marcus. It's not our job to prop them up." Before he could respond, the comms system crackled to life. "Ambassador Chen, the Imperial envoy has arrived," came the voice of Lieutenant. Patel Ilara nodded. "Send them in." Moments later, the airlock hissed open, and Vale Tar strode into the chamber, flanked by two heavily armed guards. His towering form filled the room, exuding menace. Yet Ilara remained unfazed, stepping forward with a warm smile. "Commander Vale Tar," she greeted him, extending a hand. "Welcome aboard the Aurora's Dawn. I trust your journey was pleasant." Vale Tar hesitated before reluctantly shaking her hand. "Your methods of transportation leave much to be desired, Ambassador." "Why meet in such an unstable region of space?" Ilara chuckled softly. "Unstable regions make for neutral ground. Besides, isn't unpredictability part of what makes diplomacy so exciting?" The commander's mandibles twitched irritably, but he said nothing. Instead, he gestured toward the table where holographic displays flickered to life, showing maps of the Empire's territories. "Let's get down to business," Ilara said, taking a seat. "As you can see, several key trade routes are on the verge of collapse. Pirate activity is rampant, resources are dwindling, and morale among your people is at an all-time low. We're prepared to offer assistance, but only if certain conditions are met." Vale Tar narrowed his multifaceted eyes. What kind of conditions? Ilara leaned back in her chair, her tone shifting ever so slightly. First, amnesty for dissident factions within your borders. Second, unrestricted access to your resource networks for humanitarian purposes. And third, she paused for dramatic effect, a seat for humanity on the Imperial Council. The room fell silent. Even Marcus shifted uncomfortably in the corner. These demands were bold, even reckless, but Ilara knew exactly what she was doing. "You presume too much," Veiltar growled, rising to his full height. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not bow to lesser beings." Ilara's smile never wavered. "Ah, but Commander, you already have. Your very presence here proves that much. You need us far more than we need you." For a moment, it seemed as though Veiltar might lash out. But then he stopped, his gaze locking onto hers. There was something unsettling about the way she looked at him, not with fear or hatred, but with understanding, as if she saw right through him. "What happens if we refuse?" he asked quietly. Ilara tilted her head. "That depends. How long do you think your empire will last without intervention? A decade? 2? Maybe less, given recent developments." She gestured to the hologram, which now displayed real-time data on economic collapse and civil unrest across the empire. "The choice is yours, Commander. Accept our help or watch everything crumble around you." Veiltar stared at her for a long moment before finally sitting back down. "Very well. Let us discuss terms." Hours later, as the negotiations dragged on, Marcus approached Ilara during a brief recess. "Do you really think they'll agree to this?" he asked in a low voice. Ilara glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "Not entirely, but they'll give us enough rope to hang themselves with. Trust me, Marcus. The Empire's days are numbered. All we have to do is wait." "And in the meantime?" he pressed. "In the meantime," she said with a sly grin, "we keep planting seeds. Someday they'll bear fruit." As the shuttle carrying Veiltar departed, Ilara watched it disappear into the nebula. She knew the Empire wouldn't survive another century, not with the fractures she'd just widened. And when it finally fell, humanity would be ready to pick up the pieces. After all, empires weren't destroyed by force alone. Sometimes all it took was a single conversation,